Oh my gosh, I'm leaving to Europe in just a short time, but it is time for Hotline League episode 94 before I leave this country, perhaps for good. Joined by my constant co-host Mark Zimmerman. Our guest tonight is Invert, but first I want to give a shout out to both our sponsors, Movement and Alienware, for supporting us. Mark, how's it going?
It's going great. Today was an exciting day. Play-ins finally finished. World Song came out. Groups were decided. Damwon fell into Group D. I don't know. There's a lot to talk about. I'm really excited.
I'm very excited as well. Invert, how you been?
Travis, it's been a little slow for the teams that are not at Worlds. Obviously, your off season's a little early, but for staff, it's not really an off season. We're thinking about 2020, always working on like infrastructure stuff, roster, staff, like all that confluence of things is coming together. Yeah, so everyone who's not at Worlds, I assume, has kind of hit the ground running on that, including us. So
I have, I don't know if Twitch chat is still trolling us, but I just want everybody to know that they're listening to the podcast or the YouTube pod. We did a bunch of audio testing beforehand. Twitch chat was like, Mark is fine, audio's fine, everything's great. Windows just sent an alert noise to me. And then, of course, the show starts and Mark's immediately loud. So I think, hopefully, this is better. Twitch chat, keep giving us feedback. Anyway. Invert, do you want to, I'm happy to hear things are going well for you, and relaxing and chill, in the off season. Do you want to explain a little bit about, what you do since this is your first time on the show?
Sure. So I am the LCS head coach of FlyQuest, for past two splits. Yeah, you guys may have seen FlyQuest in the LCS doing well during the spring and then being there in summer. Obviously, we were part of Gauntlet, faced Clutch, but unfortunately could not pull through. But I do think that time working towards Gauntlet was some of the best practice we had all summer. And, we came in with everything we had. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough. But, yeah, that's me. And, yeah,
well, thank you for being our first FlyQuest representative on the show. Last year, before we community decided we hated 100T, we had a reputation for making fun of FlyQuest, so it's nice to have somebody on the show. Also, shout out to Hitstreak, who unfortunately told me that there'd be an opportunity for me to do something cool with him at Worlds, then just messaged me and said, never mind, and then immediately showed up and gifted 10 subs, one of which went to Kelsey Moser, which I find very funny.
Those are some pity subs right there.
Yeah.
Those are the I'm sorry that we actually can't do this thing, so...
Yes, exactly. It's very nice of him.
So the main reason we got Invert for this episode is we disagreed on Twitter about something.
Oh, really? I didn't even know this.
Yeah.
I didn't see this conversation.
It wasn't like a big disagreement, just...
No, Mark, I'm fuming.
Oh, my bad. So I'm of the opinion that there's so many things to talk about that, and I'm sure Travis has a lot of opinions, I have opinions, I'm sure Invert's got opinions, that I would like to go a little less caller heavy this episode on some of these things, because otherwise we'd just be using them as prompts. Like caller comes in and they're like, I think Group B is too easy, and then we talk about all the stuff we were going to talk about anyways.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff, if these guys have takes, if they want to be a part of the conversation, absolutely, right?
I'm glad that you've shown up on our show, and within the first 5 minutes that we're dictating the amount of guests that we're going to bring on.
I'm just saying, like, we can say our piece, and then if they want to respond to that in Discord, and I can pull people then, that might be better than pulling them, us just kind of ranting over these people, and maybe already saying the same thing that they're going to say, and then them not having anything to contribute. Versus
we'll figure it out. Well, first 30 minutes of the show are usually us ranting about our passions anyway, so I'm trying to find it. When did you guys get in this argument? Because I'm scrolling down right now trying to find the discussion.
It wasn't much of an argument. Yesterday, or was it today? I think it was yesterday. I tweeted a bunch. I tweeted a bunch about Clutch Gaming, because once again, watching their series, they 3-0'd 2 of their games. They went for like the 10-minute Rift Herald swap, and the third one, and one of their games, the one that they didn't do it, was like they got dove topside at like 9:30, so they went bot in response, and it kind of delayed their whole play, and they went. I put a tweet out that was basically like, is Clutch Gaming like the first team that we've really seen that has this kind of set play that they do all the time, in almost every single game? And a bunch of people chimed in some people totally missed the point of what I was asking.
Invert here,
including me at first,
profanity.
but I kind of clarified after.
Right. I mean,
talking about.
As Twitter tends to go best, both people are kind of talking past each other for their first 5 tweets, and they finally start finding middle ground like later.
Sometimes literally too. We were actually arguing in 2 separate threads, and then kind of converging to decide like which one we're going to go for.
Right. So a bunch of people, through no fault of their own, were initially thinking I was saying like Clutch was the first team to go for Rift Herald because my phrasing wasn't very clear, like with the frequency they do. And I was later I was like, no,
him of missing the point. You're going in on him, Mark.
Oh yeah, dude.
This is
fuming.
Bloody.
Yeah. So what I meant was that they were the first team to have such a strategy focus, not like a specific like. And some people took issue with the term set play. You know, it wasn't just that they thought I was saying Clutch was the first team to prioritize Rift Herald. Everyone knows Rift Herald's been really important for a long time and have done these kind of 10-minute swaps. And I don't mean set play as in like they do it the exact same way every single time. That's also a bad terminology. The way I would put it now is like it's a strategy that they do every single game. The same way someone's strategy could be, you know, strategy meaning what you think is the best way to win the game. Or, you know, like in warfare, how do you win the war? That's your strategy. Your tactics are what you actually do in the battles and stuff. But the strategy is we're going to get Rift Herald every single game as early as we can, right? And other strategies could be like, oh, well, we're a 1-3-1 team, or we like to dive bot lane, or contest blues, and these are the kinds of things that you're going to look to do every game, and that influences your pick ban and what you do in the game. Sure. So now I think set play was a really bad word for it. I would say that they are one of the most strategically single-minded teams I think I've ever seen, or at least in terms of like the frequency with which they execute plays. And I can't really think of a team that has been as like we're doing this every time as they are. I think that's where I've landed on it. I don't know.
Did you guys ever sort out? Is there like did you guys come to a conclusion? Are you happy yet?
Well, if I could start, just because the way we talk about this as a set play, I think we all agree is incorrect now. When we think about set plays, normally they're in kind of in sports, like they're neutral positions, right? Like a corner kick in soccer, or a free kick, or, you know, free throw strategies, or like basketball inbound strategies. Like those are set plays in a neutral position where people kind of, you know, are in a set position to start. You don't really have that in League of Legends, right? After a pause, you know, the game is still as dynamic as it can be. You can't really have a set play out of a random pause anyways, because you're not really planning for that in the first place. So I think set play is definitely the wrong terminology. Tendency and recognition and training, that kind of stuff, to be focused on Herald, I completely agree with, right? I think Clutch does have great recognition of map states where they're able to swap for Herald, and you see them doing it very often. That doesn't mean they're the first to do it or the only people to do it, but they definitely have that tendency, and I think part of the reason why is because they've trained very well when it comes to the recognition of those situations and understanding like when their bot lane has the advantage to either walk up river, or when they have a base timing and they're able to swap out. Vulcan, you know, uses his move to break out the top lane and then brings everyone down river. You know, they have a really good understanding of how to use their bot lane's moves, either up river through bot or off of a base timing in order to get Herald. And I think they're just a bit more clever about that than other teams. But I do think teams generally, you even saw in the Gauntlet, have an idea of how to match that tempo and match that swap. So,
yeah, and I think the place that we kind of ended our Twitter conversation on was, is this the approach of kind of hyper focus? I don't want to say, you know, exactly what Clutch does for practice or whatnot, but at least how it manifests itself on game day and on the Rift does feel like almost a hyper focus on it, because there's times where they go for it and it doesn't work and it feels
like they just forced. Really prioritize this objective, you're saying, like,
right? Yeah,
just, like as part of their team identity in scrims, etc. It's like, how are we getting Rift Herald?
Yeah, but that's different from a set play, right? Again,
yeah,
set play is like from a neutral position, how that works out.
Right. And so I guess the question became, for me, was not about like, oh, what is this a set play, and more like, is this something teams should be really focusing and doing is like identifying what they think is their personal best way to win. So, some teams it might be, like I said, a 1-3-1 strategy, and then becoming almost hyper focused on it. Even though it can lead to some situations like, well, you should have done that. Which I think happened with Clutch for whatever reason. Is that still better than if they did what a lot of teams do, which is not really ever commit to a single set like strategy? And I say set again. I'm trying to avoid that word. One particular strategy that they're best at. One of the biggest things that happens with teams is they kind of lie to them. At least in my experience, is they almost dupe themselves into believing they can play everything. No one wants to admit that, like, I'm a tank player. Like, no one ever wants to admit that, even though that might be the best thing for your team or whatever. And so, Clutch has now been drafting really skirmish-heavy things like Renekton's and Rumbles and these things that are really good at 10-minute power spikes and Syndras and Nikos. And they have this kind of pretty, like, when you really look at it, a lot of their things do revolve around the idea of being able to fight for this Rift Herald. And, like, should teams really kind of lock down and become more singular in their focus was what I was walking away from, even though in the past I've been like, the game's really volatile and pick ban will make you have to go away from these sorts of things more often.
Is the question like, should they be more set in their identity and their strategies? It sounds like it's what you're kind of saying.
Right. Should
you guys are
teams...
two coaches. I mean, Mark, former coach, and so I'm trying to kind of broaden the conversation out or terminology that people can understand. It sounds like you're generally asking, should people really try to lock in these types of identities and strategies?
Right, because prior to their coaching staff joining in week 4, I think, Clutch was, because they swapped their coaching staff, they were really all over the place. And then over the course of the next 2 months, they became more and more distinct, I think, in their play styles and stuff like that. And it feels like that would probably help a lot of other teams, is just be like, all right, well, we think this is the best way to play for our team. That's all we're going to ever do from now on.
Right.
Yeah, I think just forging an identity, understanding at least the foundation of a system that you want to play, is really important to how you start coaching a team, right? I think you kind of saw, to beat up on FlyQuest a bit, to beat up on ourselves a bit, you saw we struggled in the summer split precisely because people didn't really understand like what our identity was, and we were still searching for that identity and trying to find at the very least that starting point of how we as a team should be able to play the game, right? Every team has a particular focus. RNG, Team Liquid, they're very bot lane focused. They know that no matter what the meta is, they want to play towards the bot lane and identify themselves as a team that will do that, right? And the same can be said for an IG solo lane focus. Splice is very mid-bot focused. So just having that baseline of understanding, okay, this is how we want to play the game, I think is for every coach like the foundation that you have to have in order to start getting better. And I think, if that's Clutch's foundation, they can get better from there when it comes to having recognition of map states in general, whether it's a Herald one or another neutral objective, and then being able to play through their sides and break open their sides to play for those things. So, I think having that identity to start with is really good, and it'll help you kind of improve from there because you can understand the pros and cons of having that identity and kind of build up from that.
All right. Great conversation. A little dry to start the show off with. So I'm going to move this along.
One more question that follows up with this that is a little spicier. So one of the things people were saying as well was, it only works for Clutch because they play in NA and now they're playing against some lower level competition. So now that they're in Group C, and this will open up hopefully into something better for Travis, do you think that they are going to get exposed going for these Rift Heralds and like crushed for it?
So like one way of putting this, I guess it sounds like, and I'm asking you, Mark, if this is what you're kind of getting at. Is there a world where, like, because they have this identity, this strategy that they're so known for, they can kind of get exposed because it almost makes them a little one-dimensional?
Yeah, I think that's always a concern when a team becomes one-dimensional, is the idea that people will just counter you. And now they're going in the hardest group. Basically, they're going to have to show that they're going to go and force Rift Heralds versus Fnatic and SKT and stuff like that. Like, Invert, do you have any confidence in them?
I mean, so I linked this in the Twitter thread too, but SKT is really phenomenal at defending or having their own Rift Herald swap timings. And RNG is a really interesting case as well, because a lot of the Rift Herald situations come from the fact that Vulcan can be broken out of his lane in some way and then come top, right? And then Cody follows suit pretty quickly afterwards. So will Uzi really give them that opportunity? You know, will the RNG bot lane really give them that opportunity? That's really difficult to say, I think, because I think Cody's been playing phenomenally. He was probably, honestly, the best player in play-ins, in my opinion. Like in summation. And if he carries that form forward, I think, you know, they might be able to do that to RNG, who has a pretty exploitable top lane. You know, at least the difference there. I do think if teams follow the general Unicorns of Love playbook, you know, Heimerdinger aside, getting bot lane priority means Lyra has to like path bot to get Vulcan those breakout timings and then go top. And honestly, Lyra's bot ganks in LCS have been really abysmal for the most part. Normally that lane gets their advantages in 2v2. The best example I have from summer of that is he played Rek'Sai against TSM in summer quarters, and there was that like pseudo 5-man bot lane Fiesta fight. That fight started out horribly for Lyra, and he honestly should have died, but it ended up being like a clutch fight win, thanks to Huni's Rumble. But generally, when Lyra plays towards ganking bot, he's pretty bad at it. And if teams with really good bot lanes like SKT or RNG can get that bot lane priority without Heimerdinger, then, you know, it's going to be really hard for them to even execute the play in the first place.
All right, let's make this even more spicy. Can Clutch get out of Group C with SKT, Fnatic, and RNG?
Fuck no.
Hell no.
They have no chance.
I think they could get third, but I don't think they can get second or first.
Who would you say they get third over?
I think they can get third over either RNG, most likely, or Fnatic. But I think SKT and Fnatic will probably make it out of that group.
Okay. Why don't you believe in RNG?
I really like Xiaohu, and I like their bot lane. But I think Karsa and their top laner, wow, his name escapes me, will... Langx.
Yeah,
right?
Langx, I think, yeah.
Yeah. Karsa and Langx, pretty big hole versus the other top sides of that group, honestly. So I think it's very, very exploitable, whereas Clutch has like a pretty decent mid lane hole when it comes to the difference between them and other teams. So it's just about like who doesn't stumble first, and I think the battle between third and fourth will be pretty close anyways. So yeah, that's my hot take. I think SKT and Fnatic are pretty clearly better teams overall than RNG is.
Do you think it's not as much of a group of death than the other people think then?
No, it definitely is. I would say all four teams are very strong. But I personally think that based on where the meta's going and what the style differences are between the teams, especially because bot lane for each team in this group is actually so strong, right? I think each team's bot lane is very high performing. You have to look at the differences in the other role to really see where the group shakes out. And I just think RNG doesn't have that same pull, that same like, you know, really good skill difference in their solo lanes and jungle to really get them out of this group.
You're an unpopular person in our Twitch chat right now because you're voting against Damonte in our Twitch chat. I'd like you to know that it's Tanner time.
I'm a big fan of Damonte, but it's obviously very difficult to play in a group with Faker, Xiaohu, and Nemesis. So
where was he in the Worlds video? They had mid laners from other. Where's our NA mid laner in the Worlds video?
Yeah.
He was too busy getting out of play-ins. They couldn't get him for that. Yeah.
Well,
but honestly, hats off to Clutch too, right? Like just getting where they are now, based on where they were a few months ago, it's fucking incredible. I'm really proud of them and like that story for NA.
I didn't mention this at the start of the show, but I am leaving to Worlds in just a very short time. Kobe already left, so the apartment is currently empty. I have to throw stuff in the suitcase. But that means, of course, that groups is about to start. And we already kind of talked a little bit about groups, but I don't know if we want to take a couple callers in a moment about it. I guess we have like one or two more topics to talk about before then, right?
Yeah. Do you want to pick one out of the hat?
Yeah. I'll do mine really quickly.
Is it the Worlds or is it the group format?
It's the amazing one.
Oh.
Do you not want to do this?
No, we can. I was just teasing.
Okay. Let me load this up. So, really quick discussion on this. Amazing Today tweeted out, the more I think about it, the more I see EU and NA culture influencing players differently. The focus on stardom, making a brand for oneself solely due to the lack of high-end competition will continue to harm NA if the upper levels are not somehow vastly expanded. EU West Masters and Grandmaster games are so much more competitive than any Challenger game in North America. In order to fix that, Riot needs to do something to pit. Basically, it says like there needs to be a carrot on the stick in North America because all this. I really respect Amazing, and it's hard for me to disagree with him. I mean, I do, but it's difficult for me to do it because I know he's played in North America and Europe. The thing that's weird to me is I maybe if I see him in Worlds, I will ask him this. I don't feel like the beginning of this tweet is the focus on stardom and making a brand for oneself solely due to the lack of high-end competition. I just don't feel like there's a focus on stardom and making a brand for oneself. And I think you can tell that in how dry the LCS is right now in brands and stars. I mean,
how can you even have that focus on individual stardom when individuals like don't have sponsorships, right? Like you never have players be individually representative of any particular brand. It's always like a team sponsorship that a player participates in. So
yeah,
you don't
it's not
even
like a lot of these
that.
guys are making money on their own. And I feel like, quite frankly, I feel like the stars that we do have in some instances are somewhat being squandered. Like I've said before on the show that I feel like TSM kind of stopped doing a great job of promoting Bjergsen, and I feel like his star has faded a little bit as they've just entirely focused on competition. So that's the thing that kind of is weird to me is I feel like we just aren't. Mark, go ahead.
I don't think that's what he's talking about, though. He's not talking about the Bjergsens and stuff. He's talking about because the second tweet clarifies that he's not really talking about exactly the competitive scene. He's talking more about solo queue. EU Master and Grandmaster games are more competitive than Challenger games.
Sure, but
he's saying that like the Bunny Fufus, the Shifters, the Scaras, the I Will Dominates, like there are a Voyboy. There's a ton of NA pros who quit to become streamers.
Do we think that they quit because they wanted to become stars? I feel like most of the people that you mentioned were not great players when they quit.
Yeah, but he didn't say the best players. He's just saying that this is part of our 0.01%, and like if you have 50 competent players and 5 leave, that still hurts, dude.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's like a player population issue, right? It's not like EU doesn't have those same content creators or those same streamers or whatever. It's just the impact of losing those people out of the competitive player pool is lessened by the fact that they have a higher population. So.
So I definitely agree it's the population thing, and I would say like what we lost on those 5 players, which in some cases I don't think was much. I feel like we definitely gained in the fact that we import way more high-level players. What's going on back there?
Nothing. Yeah, but that's once again like it's not all a population issue because I admit I am not the most well-versed person in Europe gameplay stuff, but the entire history of the ULCS. How many competent players, like as much as people don't think Voyboy was a superstar, he was at that point when he retired, like middle-ish of the pack in NA. There was High, there was Bjergsen, and then it really dropped off. It was like Link, and then Voyboy, and then Shifter.
Was Jensen not in the league whenever he?
It wasn't in the league yet.
Oh.
So like there like Voy was actually like your 5th best mid laner in the league, 4th or 5th best mid laner. Maybe there's Zhao, but he left.
Yeah.
So like, I don't maybe Expeke and Carlos Ocelot are like the 2 you can kind of mention from EU, but I can't really think of many EU players who were even middle-ish of the pack who dipped out for money. You know, this happened with Bunny, Cutie, Scara, Dom, Voyboy, Shifter, I don't know who else. Tons.
I mean, Bunny lost his starting spot, right?
True, and he kind of went super far into the content creator route.
Yeah, and then Scar tried his hand at coaching for a really long time, or like
a really long time.
I think it was like almost a year.
Scar
right?
just toured all the he was
he
like
was
CLG for a little bit.
CLG,
Dig,
and then he was like, I'm gonna become an interviewer, and then he just couldn't keep up with the best.
Jack of all trades, but I'm just saying, like, is there even, that's without me even really checking. I rabbled off like between 5 and 10. Like, I don't even know who I would list for Europe other than Carlos and
Wicked became a streamer.
Didn't
what the LEC players do when no actually I'll tell you exactly what the LEC players do. They don't retire. They come to North America. That's the funny thing.
You know what? You're right. They don't become streamers.
No, they come here to LCS. That's where because you can name a ton of their players who were like middle of the pack players who then came to North America.
Their shifter is Froggen, right, or something like that.
Jesus.
I mean, I doubt that either of those players would be thrilled about that comparison, but
neither are happy. I somehow managed to insult both.
You've insulted both players simultaneously.
POE though, yeah. I mean, he was high end, middle-ish of the pack, probably top.
I mean,
four
even when
he came over.
Winter Fox got made, right? Like a lot of those players were established EU LCS players that came over. Alex Sitch came over. There's like a ton of people.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think that's a good point.
And so I think, I mean, that's like.
But they are quite frankly competition. Arguably, they're still making a move for competition.
I was gonna say that as well. Like, just
this goes
generally,
back. Go sorry.
I was gonna say just generally, like, you can't just force people to play at the competitive level. They have to have that drive, and if those people don't have that drive, do you even want them competing? You could have like a Delta Fox situation where they're not as serious about competing, and so it gets kind of lazy, and then that hurts the competitive scene in a completely different way because you don't really have people with a competitive mindset trying to participate.
So here's my thing though. If the argument is these stars leave the LCS, or these guys leave the LCS because they want to chase money and fame and stardom and women and cars and private jets,
or even just a less stressful lifestyle.
Sure.
Yeah.
I like mine more. We're replacing them where like the vacuum is filled by these LEC stars. And so really the place that gets screwed by North America's obsession with stardom is Europe. Because we just backfill these empty spots with EU LCS players, LEC players. And so really, I don't think the streaming thing is the thing that's screwing over North America. I feel like it's the population thing, and maybe just a culture in North America where we take high-end solo queue less seriously than Europe.
Yeah, and I mean, once again, I don't think he's necessarily talking about the pro scene. Like, we haven't replaced Voy or stuff like that, but he's definitely targeting more about talent and development. And like, even to Gabe's point, do you want these people in the scene if they're just grabbing it for a paycheck and to appear in front of 200,000 people every day? The answer would probably be no. You want someone who's actually there to win. But that speaks to his point about the culture of NA being maybe not the best.
If they want to come back and they're like, they have that competitive spirit and they want to win and they want to represent North America, that's great. Like, I used to love Cutie Pie on Dignitas. I thought he was actually, him and Patoy were like an amazing bot lane. And I thought Patoy got screwed out of Season 3 All-Stars like so long ago. But just, generally speaking, like, these people were good players, and if QD gets that competitive drive again, if Voyboy gets that competitive drive again with his absolutely massive brain, like, I'll welcome them back wholeheartedly. But if we get another situation to the scene in general, right? And I'd love to see people with the competitive drive continue to push forward and be proud to be a part of NA and represent NA and try to win in international competition. I think that's great.
You know another EULCS player that defected to North America?
Edward.
Amazing. The person whose tweet we're talking about right now.
I feel like you keep bringing up all these like other points. He wanted to compete, and 100 Thieves gave him a chance to compete, and he came in and he gave a fuck and he helped turn their season around. Isn't that his whole point? Not enough people are like him.
All right, let's do one more topic, and then we'll take a quick break, and then we'll rush through the final one and take some calls.
Well, let's get some calls in here, man.
Let's do one more, okay?
Yeah.
Because this one has a diagram.
Pick whichever one you think is least likely to be a call.
This one has a
topic.
diagram. Oh,
This
no.
one is very likely to be a call, but I'd rather give my diagram than pull up a caller's diagram.
Okay. Well, but
Here's my
can we?
spreadsheet.
All right.
This is the group draw one. You don't need to pull it up right now.
Jesus, I'm going to show this on stream, and nothing is going to make sense because it's.
I have to walk you through it. You can't just.
No,
show
I know,
my
but
data.
like this is the least stream-friendly visual I could possibly put up. Is this shitty
Is
spreadsheet
it really
that I know
worse than
XSplit
that?
browser module will struggle to show in like an accurate way?
Is
that
it
you've
really
created this.
worse than Crumbs's like weird LCS trade thing where everyone was on different teams and it made no sense? It
No,
was
this
on the
is-
LCS
this is-
broadcast.
This is better because at least it has logic behind it. I don't think.
I'm showing it early just so that people can see what we're talking about. When it
Jesus
comes
Christ, I can't even see that.
Yeah.
You can pull it up. It's in the Skype chat.
To
Gabe,
take all this
right?
information in, everybody.
The red bars. You move left to right. Everything just on the left of the red bar, then the middle streak, and then the right streak, and we'll work our way through it. Okay. Okay.
We're gonna lose all of our
pull that
viewers.
down. Pull that down for now. Okay. let's get hyphy first.
Pull it down forever.
Okay, get me hyped for the spreadsheet, Mark.
Pull it down. We'll say some hyphy shit, so then people want to hear why I made that spreadsheet.
Get me
okay?
pumped. I want to look
Group
at some
B-
fucking numbers and some
Group
columns.
B is the easiest group of all time, and it is a joke that group even exists.
Okay, let me find.
Okay.
Let me show that.
It's a fucking joke.
I feel like looking at Group A that's the easiest group of all time.
That's funny.
Cloud9's gonna cut through that like a
G2.
knife through hot butter.
What about that season 3 group? That
Okay, that was.
SKT. It was like 16. It was when groups were like 6 teams.
Yeah, I mean the modern era, which is like 2014 and onwards, when they basically adopted the 4-group format.
Yeah.
You know, people were pointing out other ones, and there's definitely groups that have worse teams in them. And I don't mean to say that these are the worst teams ever at Worlds, but Jap put it pretty well on the desk earlier, where he was like, "That's a group with a single top 10 team in it and 3 non-top 10 teams." You know, there's been groups where there's 2 top 10 teams, and then it's like the 15th and 16th best team, and they crush them. Kind of like Group D Worlds last year, like 100 Thieves and G-Rex were pretty far behind. It was super easy for their top 2 teams to get out. Like the battle for second is actually kind of close in Group B in my mind. Like Splice wasn't super convincing. Gam and J Team could actually all get out of that group realistically.
I like both those teams too. I think
Yeah.
Gam and J Team are, people don't really watch those regions, so they don't really know what to expect. So they're
Gam's
kind
been
of
on
like
the verge.
whatever.
Vietnam's on the verge of a breakout for a while. So
Yeah, and Levi's back. So
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But they should prove that against 2 likely top 10 teams. Right now, it's like, who are they proving that against other than potentially FunPlus, right? Like, that's the problem, is that group, you should basically hopefully have 2 top 8 teams and 2 not top 8 teams in each group. Hopefully that's what you're going for. And it's not always going to work, and you never know. Groups are volatile and whatnot. But, like, that's a group that I look at, and I'm like, why can the Vietnamese number 1 team, the LMS, was that number 1 team or 2 team? I forget.
number 1.
Number 1 team, and then the European 3rd seed all get together. You know, like, that's just a mishmash. And that's why I created that monstrosity of a document to highlight why that's so ridiculous.
I mean, the document's definitely ridiculous.
Did I hype it up? Did I get you guys bought in on this yet?
Well,
I mean,
okay, hang on. Let me
how
help.
much of it also do you think is that some results just didn't go some regions' way? So, like, China, for example, is sending IG, the former world champions, as their 3rd seed, which is like,
So
for a lot of other regions, if you're sending a team like that as your 3rd seed, that's really, really good, right?
yeah, and I think a lot of people sometimes say, like, oh, the number 1 seed, at Worlds has almost never won. Actually, the number 2 seed of every region almost historically consistently outperforms the number 1 seed. But the problem is not that the major region's number 1 seeds underperform. It's that the second pool contains 8 teams. You have 4 teams in pool 1, 8 teams in pool 2. They treat the Chinese and Korean number 2 seeds as skilled in this pool system as the LMS second team. They in the pools, those are equal strength teams.
Even though the average rankings at these international tournaments have not been as good. And yeah, obviously that's not an ideal system. So
right. So yeah, that's where I'm coming from. I'm looking at this and I'm looking really the LMS second team is as good potentially as the Korean or Chinese second seed. No. It's not. That's ridiculous. And so that's why, because of how Pool 2 is created, you can get these kinds of monstrosity groups that just have all bad teams in them. And that's why I created the spreadsheet, to highlight that. Because people might say, like, but sometimes the LMS second team has done better than the Chinese third seed or something. And I wanted to show you average rankings, which is what this monstrosity is.
Hang on, I hate to derail this conversation, but I've been informed that people are going into Voyboy's chat and saying we're calling him dumpster tier. And he's
not true.
He's currently talking about it on his stream. So I just want to, people could clip this and explain that we did not say Voyboy was dumpster.
I said he was the 4th or 5th best mid laner at the time of his retirement in NALCS. What the fuck, guys?
I'm trying to see. He's talking. You guys can't hear it, but actually, as we speak, he just died 1v1 in mid lane. So that's.
You guys distracted me by making fun of.
He says,
I mean, for me, like I said, if people like Voyboy, who again I complimented his absolutely massive brain, have the competitive drive to come back and represent NA as a player, like absolutely, and that goes for any content creator. Just because you become one doesn't mean that you can't regain that competitive drive and then be able to perform well. So
it's just great because when I went to a stream, he died, and then I unmuted, and the Twitch chat just heard him go, "You guys distracted me by making fun of me." Okay, sorry, but Voyboy, we love you.
Yeah, I don't know. I tweeted. I said, "Ignore Twitch chat, Voyboy." I said, "You're the 4th best mid at time of retirement." Anyways, so back to this document. Are you ready for it?
Well, I was gonna say just reform the simple fix, and that's something slow, gradual format changes is something Riot's more likely to adopt. The simple fix is probably just to separate the second pool into 2 different pools and then be able to differentiate teams that way. I think that's completely reasonable. I think the difficulty in that will obviously kind of lie in the winning region's 2nd and 3rd seed, just how much you value that winning region's 3rd seeds. So in the case of like IG, are you still going to put IG in that 3rd pool? Technically you should, right? But also I can see an argument the other way because it is a team from a region that is so strong this year.
Yeah, and I think that's the big part, is that this is mostly about fixing pool 2, which should be pretty easy. So Travis, can you pull that up just to show?
Okay, so I just want to warn everyone. I've been told that a lot of you use dark mode or night mode. This is gonna burn your corneas.
Included. Yeah.
It's gonna burn your corneas. So everybody,
can I change this to night mode somehow? Is there a way to change this?
Put on flux.
Put on your movement sunglasses. Hashtag ad.
Wait, is there no way to change Google Docs to
night mode? No. Okay, here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And you know what, callers? If you have your own spreadsheets, if you want to talk about group stage and how you would fix it, absolutely, let's go.
Jesus, what are you doing? I don't like how much you talk to our callers.
Yeah, stop putting ideas in their head. I'm gonna move a bunch of this stuff out of here just so no one gets distracted. Okay. So, what I've done here is at the top you see I have 2018, 2017, 2016. This is only using Worlds placings. I think using Rift Rivals placing, or excuse me, MSI placings is a bit of a bad idea because you only get to see the top team from each region. So like, the Team Liquid one seed was close to this team, or like the Vietnamese team, or what happened with TSM before, right? And then like you're not actually seeing the regional strength; you're seeing that one team in that one situation. Whereas Worlds, you actually have multiple teams from regions competing, which helps. So this is, like let's say NA's first, second, and third seeds. The left column is all seeds. The rows are the years, and then their placings. And so you'll see some 0.5s and stuff like that, and 14.5s. Those are when all the teams finish like third in their group. They all got around like a 13 or 14.
Shout out to the NA third seed right there, holding it down.
Yeah, NA third seed, this is Cloud9. All three of these placements are Cloud9, are literally saving the fuck out of North America.
So lower number is better.
Right, so lower number is better. This is like golf. If you look at like the years Korea won, they got 2 teams in the finals twice, first and second. And you see that puts their, averages really low. So, this would be their average for 2016 between their 3 seeds. Here's their for 2017 would be here. And then here's 2018. Korea sucked in 2018. China actually technically was better because Vitality holding it down. But you can see Europe's very top heavy and very good with the second and third seed. I included 3 years just for a little bit more extra data. Theoretically, you could argue 2 years, while more volatile is more accurate to the present day, which is fine. I just use 3 either way. But I wanted to highlight more importantly the LMS. These motherfuckers haven't got a team out of groups in Worlds for 3 years in a row. Additionally, they're almost always tied for last, especially last year. They had 2 teams.
Their MSI performances in those past years were okay, right? They still got other groups at MSI, and
it happened once since 2016.
Yeah. Sorry, why is the 2016 field empty for?
Oh, they only had 2 seeds.
Yeah, okay.
They only had 2 seeds, and then Vietnam. Technically, they were Southeast Asia here, but it was a Vietnamese team. But they didn't exist in 2016. So I used.
That's why there's a hashtag DIV user.
Yeah, don't divide by 0, everybody. So if you look at like average placings, the best Vietnamese team, or excuse me, LMS team over the last 3 years has basically been slightly better than our worst seed over the last 3 years, which is our second seed for some reason. Right? So not great look. And even if you look at the average regional strength, it's 14.1 versus 9.2 as a placing, which is pretty crazy. They don't even have like one good team holding them down anymore at Worlds. That doesn't happen for the most part. Compared to, like Korea, pretty much, almost always good. So if you rank these teams by order of, let's say, just how well their seeds perform, you get this. Oh, that wasn't right. Hold on. There we go. All right, so Korea's the best from the previous 3 years, though it's obviously changing a lot in the last year. Then China, then Europe, North America actually, kind of far behind. Then Vietnam by a massive amount. Then LMS actually as a regional whole. But then if you break it down by like how many seeds are doing well, so Korea has, their second seed averages the best at third, and then China is actually really close. Then Europe, and then actually North America, their best seed ties with Korea's second best seed, which is and that's basically Cloud9. Yeah, it's basically Cloud9.
Cloud9 performs on average as good as Korea's second team.
That's why they became second seed this year, so they could raise the average of the second seed score. That makes so much sense now.
Yeah.
Thank you, Cloud9.
Yeah, Cloud9 is just basically holding it down for us. But you'll basically see it's Korea, China, some Europe and North American teams, more Korean and Chinese teams, and then, some more Europe and North American teams.
Wait,
and then,
NA number 1. I love that NA number 1 is...
Don't look at NA, all right?
Yeah.
Like I said, we're struggling. But then it's not until the 12th team. On average, LMS is like the 12th. Their best team is the 12th best team in the tournament, which is not getting out of any group. And then North America happens, then Vietnam happens, and then LMS 2 and 3 come in. Treating these teams as equal to Korea and China's number 2 seeds is insanity. You're treating the worst performing members of group stage as well as top 8 teams based off using the Pool 2 system that we currently have.
Well, you've made your point, but we lost all our viewers in the process. So I hope
the
it
same
was
amount of viewers. Okay. we have to change the pool system. It's absolutely a joke to treat these guys. Okay, Nyoko, calm down, buddy. Don't jump on my keyboard. That's crazy. It's absolutely a joke to treat them that way.
Yeah, I do think there'll be some LMS reckoning in 2020 beyond them, losing their league as we know it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the sad part is I'm kind of railing against them right now as they're already in one foot in the grave. But I do think it's important to learn from their example, right? Like we've given Vietnam a free seed into Worlds as a Pool 2 team, and I'm looking at that saying, why are we doing that exactly based off historical precedents? I know they had a good MSI that kind of we did that for a little bit, but now that we've done it for a little bit, maybe they should be going through play-ins. I don't know. I think it's worth talking about. And then the final thing I put back into the document, which is the far right part on that side, is what the pools would look like if you actually just placed their slot rankings across Pool 1. So Pool 1 actually still, believe it or not, thanks to the power of Cloud9, creates a really nice first pool. Korea 1, China 1, Europe 1, North America. Technically that's North America 3, but you can't really build the system assuming the third North American team is always going to be their best.
We automatically seed Cloud9 into the number 1 pool because we know that they are the most valuable part of North America's lineup.
Yeah, realistically, you can't do that. But what you can say is that whoever is the best performing team of North America, on average, doesn't actually performs decently well, and can be in a Pool 1 team. Pool 2 then is entirely comprised of the rest of Europe and China, or Korea and China. Now, like I said, this is slightly, I didn't weight 2016 any different than 2018, so this is obviously a little bit out of date if you're using 2016 data. But realistically, Pool 2 should entirely subsist of Chinese, Korean, and European teams, right? And then Pool 3 is maybe when you would start seeing LMS show up. Their Pool 1 seed.
Mark, do you think, I guess I want to ask the viewers this too, do you think that this gets the best quality Worlds product in the knockout stage? Because obviously with these groups in mind, the way that you segment the rest of Korea and China into one pool, those teams could potentially be knocked out before the knockout stages because the quality of each group is higher, right? So do you actually get the best product, right? Entertainment product out of these groups as a result of this?
I think it's one of those things where a lot of it comes down to what you're actually trying to do with Worlds. If the idea of Worlds is we're going to find the absolute best team while showcasing a lot of other teams, then these groups aren't great for that because there's a chance, Vietnam never makes it through and LMS is only showing one team potentially or whatever. And it becomes very much basically a top 4 region tournament probably. So I can understand, if that's their perspective, then this isn't really something they're going to want to do. But you can still use this information to create better pools, because underneath that, I did it in a way that would hopefully help them a little bit, which is saying, like, you can't create a pool with more than one team from a region in it. So that works obviously already for Pool 1, but then for Pool 2, you would have to say, okay, yeah, the Korean second and third seed is in there, but the third Korean seed has to get kicked down to Pool 3. And you can still create a better system this way, because then Vietnam is playing in play-ins. A lot of it has to do with the fact that LMS gets 3 seeds. That's what creates a lot of the problems with this right now. Mm-hmm. If we just only gave them 2 seeds and had an extra wildcard team playing in, then you can kind of, I think, do it a lot better. But I think they have to move to a 4 pool system in the future. I think using only 3 pools and Pool 2 having 8 teams in it is a disaster.
I definitely think that's the minimum they can do, and I think a good alternative as well, if they really are stubborn about it, is to make it so that Pool 3 is the team with 8 teams. If they're really stubborn about that in particular, like having that like big block, I think that would be a way to make things more fair as well. At least more fair than what the system.
By the way, is this still a call-in show?
Yeah, so
that's all on you guys. That's not.
I told you. I think like I have a lot of data, and I'm sure someone would call in and say these groups are dumb. So rather than wait till someone say the groups are dumb, now you've seen the data, Twitch chat, about how actually.
I'm gonna be honest. I don't know how well they've seen it because you have to full screen that on a pretty big screen monitor in order to like a 34-inch Alienware monitor.
There you go, Twitch chat. I put it in there. You can't edit it. Don't try. But you can at least pull up the data.
Can you make like a bit.ly with like Mark Z data or something so that people can look it up if they're listening to the podcast?
And
I see why. Yeah. I'll look into that.
If we're gonna be like radical about tournament format changes, like a lot of people are.
We need to move on. Just say your bit. Go.
Double eliminate. A lot of people are pro double elimination, and I've heard a lot of ideas revolving around just throwing even more teams into play-ins and just having it be just a complete bloodbath to get whoever out. So I mean, there's lots of different options. I'd love to hear them all. I'd love to talk and debate about them all with you guys, but as well the callers.
I mean, my problem with the caller suggested tournament format changes are almost always like, let's break the entire thing and rebuild it. Here's my plan. Whereas this was just like, I just want to add another pool to our existing system. So like, I'm always hesitant when they're like, it's a double elimination, 32 team system. It's like, that's not.
What if we just take the 10 best teams from every region and put them into an international tournament?
We just parachute them down.
Can't wait to get to our calls, but first I want to talk about.
I'm pulling callers now. You
do
a plug, and then the rest of the show will be callers. Okay. Sorry, callers. I deprived you of your ability to call in.
Mark, explain how the call thing works, and then we'll go to an ad.
All right. If you've never seen the show but sat through that for some reason,
and I don't know why you would.
This is actually a call-in show, despite what you might think. I'm spamming Discord link into the Twitch chat. Go ahead and join up there. Most of you guys are already in here. Pretty full Discord tonight. Go ahead and join one of the voice channels once you join the Discord. Mute yourself once you're there, and then go into Club Topics and type what it is you want to talk about. If we like your take, I will pull you from that voice channel into the waiting room where you'll hang out until it's your turn to join us. And then I'll do a quick mic check, make sure you're still working, and then pull you into the on-air room. Okay.
I want to give a shout-out to a special someone, actually a special company. That company is Alienware. They're our sponsor for this show. Our first break, our first sponsor shout out for the evening goes to Alienware. Boy, am I glad that Alienware is around, because I got to tell you guys, I just had a conversation. I've been pricing out the world's stuff. It is really expensive to go to Europe for a very long period of time. And Brodin charges a lot. And I would be destitute if it wasn't for Alienware coming in and supporting and sponsoring my World's coverage. It is incredibly expensive. And so I just want to give a big shout out to them. You can go check out their stuff over at alienware.com/Travis. Actually going through that link, and I'll put it in the chat right now, actually helps me out a ton, because they keep an eye on, how many people are going through and checking out the stuff, and they care about, hey, look, is Travis's audience like checking out the new 55-inch OLED gaming monitor that's on our website, or the new laptops, or the new desktops, or any of the deals that we're doing, their new peripherals. That stuff is incredibly helpful, and so you guys doing that helps me out, and them doing this helps me out. And so really, this ad is all about helping me out. Somebody says $400 flights. No, this is the problem that I had. Was it last year when I went to Europe for MSI? People all think it's cheap because they go find this one random flight from like Pennsylvania at a certain time with 3 layovers on a very questionable airline that I couldn't bring my expensive camera equipment on and check and feel pretty confident about it. And they say, Travis, World should cost you $3.50. But it doesn't. It costs thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to cover this stuff, and Alienware makes it all possible. So thank you so much to Alienware. And I'm hoping Mark Z does not send me a new invoice for Hotline Link anytime soon. Let's just put it that way.
I can wait till afterwards, but it's going to be a bigger number.
That interest just racks up,
Oh, I should charge interest.
You don't. It's your fault. You don't send the invoice. It's not like I've.
No.
Thank you for the Twitch subs as well, by the way, because that actually does help. And I am going to be trying to stream. Oh, so okay. By the way, I just wanted to give a shout out to this. Sometimes people in in the Twitch chat when I do these ads like to talk about how expensive Alienware stuff is. Obviously, like if you're buying a 50, and by the way, I'm going completely off script. Alienware's not told me to talk about this at all. But obviously, if you're buying something that's a really premium product like the 55-inch OLED gaming monitor that's 4K, that's insane. That you're going for something so crazy. I'm sure that the price is going to be a little bit more than like the 20-inch monitor that you want because you're getting this amazing product, right? But constantly, because the funny thing is that because I've looked up Alienware and like Google knows that I like Alienware, it's constantly feeding me all these like deals on Alienware stuff, and there are some really great deals that they have on their website. I mean, people think that it's going to cost. By the way, this is everyone's fault. The ad could have ended, but people were saying they're so expensive. You can go get like their base desktop right now is $819. Obviously, you might want to upgrade some stuff over time, but if you look at their stuff and they always run deals, by the way. Travis 10 off gets you 10% off as well. Like you can get stuff for really good prices. Quite frankly, and they're constantly running deals and sales and all that stuff. So just look, if you think that this stuff is going to cost you more than you think, you should go check it out and actually see the prices for yourself because you might be surprised, especially when you add some discount codes.
That 55-inch monitor is like just big enough to fit that World's Group Draw spreadsheet we just saw too.
Yes, exactly. If you're watching this,
does Alienware make printers? I want to print it out. All right, you ready?
Yeah. Mark is off grabbing our first caller.
First victim. Let's do it.
Exactly. Are you in LA still, Invert?
Yeah, so I'll actually be going to Europe myself. I'll be going to Madrid and Paris to spectate semis and finals. So that should be fun. Yeah.
Labuda is here. Labuda, you've been on the show before, right? Labuda is here. Labuda, you've been on the show before, correct? Labuda. You're a person who's been on the show before.
No, wait, you can't hear him? Because I can hear him.
I can't hear him.
Oh, wait.
I can't hear him.
I cannot.
Okay.
Discord is incredible.
I think Mark pulled in a fake caller so that he can continue to talk with just us.
Yeah, you're fine.
Maybe drag him out and drag him back in?
I will, Travis. Let me just tell him. Can you press like the disconnect hang up button on Discord so you leave and then come back and I'll pull you back on?
I turned him up, but still can't.
No, that's not the problem. Sometimes Discord does this. I just need to see where he rejoins.
He's in pleb calls too. I'll pull him in.
All right, there he goes. I got him. Hello?
Is this any better?
Yes. That's wild. I didn't do anything. It just like Mark could hear you and I couldn't.
Beautiful.
Discord.
Welcome.
Is Discord heading towards Skype territory? Labuda, welcome to the show. You've been on the show before, correct?
Yes, sir.
Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Illinois.
Illinois. Well, thanks for being a Twitch sub. It's really appreciated. What do you want to talk about on the show tonight?
So I don't know if it's a hot take necessarily. For your Twitch chat, it might be, but my take is pretty much that there's a pretty decent chance that NA might just not get any teams out of group at all.
Yeah. I don't know if this is... First off, do the three of us think this is a hot take? Because I actually don't... By the way, I'm not calling you out, but I think it's an interesting discussion. Is this a hot take or not? I don't think it is.
This is a refrigerated take. It's not quite frozen, but it's a little cold.
This take was like eaten for dinner, and the rest is in leftovers in the fridge.
Yeah.
That's
so do we? Okay, I feel like I would give it a 50-50 right now that none of the teams make it out of groups.
I think that's pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
Like for me, we don't know what Griffin's going to show up. Clutch is in a very difficult group that we talked about previously,
and I don't know what TL is going to show up.
And we don't know what TL is going to show up, nor what IG is going to show up. Yeah. Because the IG that people think of when they think of the World Championship, that was a very different IG compared to LPL Summer, the playoffs, and the Gauntlet. Obviously, the Gauntlet, they picked it up. They had a really pretty good Gauntlet run with their new jungler, similar to what we saw in North America, but a little more successful. But yeah, their new jungler was clicking pretty well by the tail end of it. So we'll see how much that extra practice with LAN will be. So.
Well, Labuda, sorry, I don't know if Invert stole your fire just now, but why do you think that, or why do you think there's a good chance they're not going to make it out of groups?
Well, I think he pretty much nailed it too, but I was pretty much mostly here because I see a lot of these like ridiculous takes, especially on C9. or it's just a bunch of NA fanboys just drooling on themselves. Like, oh, C9, they always perform well, in groups. They always show up at Worlds, but like they're facing the EU #1 team, probably a top 2 region, and then the other top 2 region, Korea, their #2 team. Like these are really, really good teams. And I think we just kind of have this like fantasy about, C9 running it like they normally do. And I like C9 a lot. Like I think they're a really good team, but I don't think they're gonna run it through this team.
Labuda, did you see my spreadsheet?
I think
I did.
They played against EDG and SKT in a group before, and they got out. They played against Gen.G and RNG and got out.
And why did that happen though?
Because they're a great team, and they'll continue to be a great team. And just like EDG choked and Gen.G choked.
Exactly. There you go. Do we think
Griffin and G2 are going to choke somehow? Somehow it's going to happen.
No, because these are top tier teams with probably. If you look across the board, all these players, if you compare them like G2 to C9 and Griffin to C9, they're just all individually a lot better going against C9, right? And
so is EDG.
I get that they can, the whole choke factor can show up again, but this is Griffin losing to SKT choking. Like this is, the faker team, and G2 doesn't choke. They go to game 5s. They went down they went down 2-0. They went down 2-1 against Fnatic. Like they don't show that pressure affects them very much, right? Like
EDG had an 8K gold lead and somehow lost to SKT.
Exactly. Again, who'd they lose to?
SKT. I think you guys have to think about two things too, and this is something that. Yeah, I know. I'm just saying, like, when we talk about C9 specifically, their group is so interesting because Griffin does not have a great pedigree of performing under really high pressure circumstances, right?
I agree.
And as well as that, they don't have a coach anymore, right? Or rather, they may have some sort of makeshift substitute for that, but CV Max is gone. So all of that to say is like things are set up really well, from the outside looking in for C9 to do something and to be kind of to have a really good chance of getting out of their group, right? When was the last time Griffin even won like a best of 5? I think it was like 3-1 against Gen.G or something crazy like that.
It was right before SKT.
Summer last not Gauntlet even. Last summer's playoffs.
Yeah.
So again, high pressure situations, not really Griffin's forte. World's group stage, pretty high pressure situation overall. You're doing it without the coach who brought you from Challengers Korea all the way up to where they are now. We'll have to see. Griffin is like the complete fucking unknown to this. We have no idea how that team is going to perform once they step on that stage, and that could be to C9's benefit or detriment if that team comes out swinging too, right? So we just don't fucking know.
And the thing is, I'm mostly just attacked. Like Mark said, he was trolling, but this is pretty much how Twitch chat and Reddit sounds. They think that like because we're at Worlds groups and that all the previous years C9 was showing up, that for some reason they're going to show up this year. Like I get the whole Griffin thing, and I honestly think the coach leaving might actually come out as a positive for them, because I was reading about it, how there was just so much internal pressure and so much back and forth, like pull and tug, that actually might be better for them to get rid of the distraction, and it maybe help the players perform better overall.
And I think the thing with G2 to remember as well, I'm with you that I don't think it will happen, but there is the right elements for it to happen, like Invert covered with Griffin, but also G2 went 5-5 at groups at MSI, and people really hype them up for good reason. They are really good, but they dropped games to Fengvu, they dropped a game to Team Liquid, they dropped both games to IG. They beat SKT, which was kind of their twice pretty badly, which was their big reason people were hyped on them coming out of group stage. And they are a really good team, and then they beat SKT in a best of 5. But in a best of 1 setting, they have dropped games before. And it's possible that they drop one versus C9, and then they 2-0, Griffin, and then Griffin drops one to C9, and then all of a sudden C9 picked up enough wins to get out. It's not impossible.
I do think also, and this is panning to another group, we talk about C9, but I think TL's in not a terrible position either. You know, they're dealing with obviously a tough opponent in IG, but you know they have a really strong core. Literally, like Core JJ is one of the best supports I've ever fucking seen. Like this guy is really nuts. He's probably the best support ever to show up in North America. Honestly, what this guy does is absolutely insane. But yeah, I think we shouldn't be like sleeping on TL. We don't know how this TL will perform in this group, but they have a pretty decent international pedigree with how they did at MSI. So if they're as prepared as they were previously, we should see that again.
The other night, Kelby and I were playing Borderlands 3. And
how is that?
It's pretty good.
Travis, we're running out of time.
It was 3 a.m. It was 3 a.m. in Europe, and I just saw in the corner of the screen, Pootery Pong has unlocked this achievement, and that was when my hopes in North America went away.
I'm back, everyone. Sorry.
So Peter Pang has been playing a lot of Borderlands 3.
It was their day off. And you got to keep in touch with a new girlfriend somehow. So I guess Borderlands is the way you do it.
Let's go to another caller.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thanks, Labuda, for the call. I hope you're wrong, but I worry that you're right.
Oh no, I do too. I really hope. I'd like to see all three of them come out. That'd be sick, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Thanks.
All three would be quite something.
That would be sick. Have a good one.
You too. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Mark is off grabbing the next caller. We haven't had a chance to shout out too many of our subs, which I will remedy right now. In just a second. Thank you to folks who have gifted subs. And as I said, Worlds is expensive, so it's actually really nice when you guys are doing this because I also have to pay Mark for several episodes of Hotline League, and I am going to go bankrupt. Thank you to Abija1225, Mandrake Root, J-Manda Gamer, Invader Zim 16, C Money, Insulin Shots, Catherine, King of Seas, Omega Diamond Zinc for 19 months, Punopoly, great name, 13 months, Malding, Mike for 15, and Derek for 4. We've got our next caller here, Mario Sunshine. Can I hear you?
Hello.
Okay,
can you
great.
hear me?
Yes, we can.
We can.
Where are you calling from?
Baltimore, Maryland.
Baltimore, Maryland. Okay, and what do you want to talk about in the show tonight?
I want to talk about how there's a chance that this year's Worlds that China really booms out after they had a really successful last year's Worlds.
And you said China will boom out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Boom out of this Worlds. Yeah, they'll get one team out in quarters, and the other two won't even make it out of groups.
Okay. This is an interesting take. By the way, how many of us have seen the video of Yankos looking like he's about to cry while laughing about their scrims versus... well, I think it was just the Korean teams, right? But maybe it was also the Chinese teams?
Oh, man. I mean, everyone does that when they're scrimming other people. They overplay the situation one way or another.
Mark, did you see this video, by the way?
Yeah, I saw them. I have no thoughts on them. He's just trolling.
You think so? That seemed really realistic. He was just like... He looked like he was suffering from PTSD.
Yankos is a good actor, dude. I've seen him in enough stuff that I'm believing he can pull that off if he needs to.
Okay. All right. So why do you think China is gonna bust her out of groups, with the exception of one that gets into quarters?
So FunPlus obviously gets it out, but the other two teams, one is that since this is the first year that not every team boot camped in Korea in the same place, they have there's a really good chance that EU has all these weird picks, and that there's a very distinct meta between the Western teams that scrimmed in Europe and the Eastern teams that scrimmed in China and Korea. And so they could if they happen to just not be prepared for what the Western teams would pull out, they could really catch the best surprise and go and just surprise them best of ones. As well as if you look at what the groups that IG and RNG have SKT and Fnatic, two really strong teams, and RNG is, while they're playing well, could resort back to just defend the Uzi comps, and which might not work in this situation. As well as then you look at IG, which could completely flounder. They're very similar to Genji last year, where they were the defending world champions. They looked bad in summer, but then pretty good in Gauntlet, and then come Worlds, they were just back like they were in summer, and IG could very easily do the same thing.
So,
Yeah, it's very reasonable.
Yeah, I mean,
oh, go ahead.
I know I was gonna let you go because I don't actually have too much to add to it.
I mean, I said I don't think RNG really could. I was pretty strong on the opinion earlier on that I think RNG has a lot of exploitable weaknesses in this group in particular. I got flamed for that, I guess, in chat, and now people are like, yeah, that's a reasonable take. RNG could totally not make it out of groups. But yeah, so I mean, generally, I think you're right. I think Damwon showed a lot of good strengths in the play-in stage. They said they weren't performing up to their best. I can agree with that based on what I've seen. And so they could play spoiler to someone like IG, who maybe haven't found their form with their new jungler. And yeah, for me, I think RNG, the group they're in, has so many good bot lanes that you kind of have to look at their top side and see, are they really better than the top side of Fnatic or SKT? And they have to prove that. I can't really say that that's the case based on what I've seen from them in the LPL. Even though I think Xiaohu is a really good mid laner, and I think he plays particularly well on that team. So yeah, I think it's totally reasonable to say that the only team that gets out of groups is FunPlus. Does that mean that they'll bust her out in quarters? I think FunPlus is really strong, kind of underrated a bit because they're in such an easy group. I could see them, having a really good run, depending on their quarters and semis matchup.
Yeah, I think that's. I almost feel like I'm more confident on FunPlus winning a best of 5, depending on matchup, than I am about some of these other teams getting out of their group. I think IG is the closer one for me between the two. I'm with you that I think. I mean, Fnatic. I'm a little concerned about topside, Pupo and stuff, but like, even then, RNG is somewhat similar, where they don't help laying out too much. So I think they could get out RNG, but I would still pick SKT and Fnatic. And then IG, I think it really depends on how good they are and whether or not they're kind of shooting themselves in their own foot. I still, just because I'm nervous about TL, kind of think it's somewhat likely that they get out. But after
I kind of avoided talking about TL when I was talking about IG, because I was saying Damwon could play spoiler. But that group has 3 teams that could reasonably take the 2 spots, and I could see IG just being the one left out. Whether that means Damwon is first or TL is first, just like 3 teams, 2 spots, and IG is looking on form, kind of the weaker of the 3 right now.
Yeah, but I think FunPlus would beat IG if they got out the 2 seed, or Damwon if they got the 2 seed. Them versus Griffin, I think, is an interesting matchup, but I think FunPlus could probably beat Fnatic if Fnatic's the 2 seed and SKT is the 1 seed, which is how I would, if I was doing my own pools. I think that would be. So I think FunPlus, I actually have them beating 2 out of 3 of their potential third place matchups, Damwon and IG even. Griffin, like I said, is tough for me, but then I think they beat Fnatic. So yeah, in that sense, I actually think FunPlus, if they do get out first and they look as good as I think they're going to look, then they should make semis.
Yeah, I agree. Travis, what do you think?
Is China doomed this year?
No, I'm going to take the opposite stance. I think China's going to come out swinging. I think people are sleeping on China, and I think that they're going to come out and be really strong. I think.
So then, do they all get out? Is that coming out strong? All 3 get out?
I think yes, I do. That's my take. Let's not. We haven't done like official group predictions. Maybe I need to do official group predictions. But
you're gonna say it now, and then a week later, it's gonna be completely different. For this call,
yes, because I think people are underrating them. I think IG is gonna come out really strong because they'll want to beat Team Liquid, and they're gonna supercharge up, and they'll come out probably first or second in that group. I think TL.
So then, in Group C, who doesn't get out?
In Group C, Fnatic.
Okay. Travis takes one trip to China and suddenly
So you're saying it's gonna be Travis? You're saying it's gonna be Clutch and Royal Never Give Up? Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Just so we get that
it
on
is
the
Tanner
record.
time. It is Tanner time, and I feel sorry for Faker because they've been hyping up his return with like that Phoenix song and all that stuff, but I definitely feel as though he's doomed. He's gonna get clapped by Tanner, and that's gonna be the rise of Phoenix. Is actually about North American mid laners. All right, North American mid laners have been failing for a while on the international stage, and now we're back with DeMonte, and it's time for North America to rise in the mid lane.
Do you guys think it's really weird that Clutch has been pretty consistent in banning Kiana in their game so far? I think that's pretty strange. I don't know.
I don't think Lyra plays it, if I had to guess.
Yeah, that could be why that is. They can't flex it, but I do think it was a pick that was like emerging for them. That it's pretty interesting that they don't put the onus on the other team to target them with that ban.
Hey, while we're doing predictions, and I don't know if we have a call on this, but I'm guessing we don't. Who do you guys think gets out of Group B alongside FunPlus?
I think J Team is actually not terrible. So, and we don't know. I mean, if Gam does the same like lane swap stuff that Loki did in the Damwon game to take like a couple best of ones, or like similar strats, you know, I could see that. But I think J Team, I'm like Fofo gang. I think he's really, really good, but the rest of that team needs to really pick it up for them to get second.
Yeah, Twitch chat's going wild for Gam. I think Splice, I'm having a hard time placing them because
I have a whole Splice rant ready, man.
I don't think we're getting a Splice caller, so this might be but before you get what your rant, I was just gonna say, I think a lot of people are gonna go hard on them for getting pushed to 5 versus UOL, but I was relatively impressed with UOL, so I don't know how much I look down on Splice for that. So I don't know. If it's a toss up for me. I really don't have a strong opinion. Sadly, I'd coin flip or roll the dice.
Let me tell you guys about Splice. We're about to get real in the weeds, detail oriented right now. I'll fire this off really quickly. I think Splice. If you can look at game 1 of UOL where they had full control and they just dropped the ball in so many instances. So their weak side is terrible. They 4-man dive bot. Great play. Then Vizichachi gets caught on weak side for no fucking reason at all. And so like they have these decent ideas early, but they have no idea how to cover themselves on the other side. So that's really fucking bad. And then the second thing is their Herald's control in that same game and general neutral objective control leaves a lot to be desired where they get to the objective second even when they're ahead. So Xerxes is like basing with 2 pinks, doesn't even drop a pink on Herald, lets UOL get Herald for free after being down like 3-4k, fucking ridiculous. And then they also start Baron on these absolutely awful times, like it's like a 34-minute Baron and they're just starting it. I think they have some serious nerves issues. I think they have it's really weird because they have really good stats at 15 minutes, so you know these detail oriented things, you wouldn't see it, but then they just drop the ball and their average game time is like over a minute compared to the other teams that got out of play-ins. It's so crazy. But I don't know. I think Kabe is really good. I think him and Cody are really great ADs, and they were probably the best ADs out of play-ins. But man, Splice just need to get together when it comes to paying attention to either their weak side, like defending Vizichachi, or the bot lane if they make a play on the other side. Those players need more awareness. And as well as that, they really need awareness around those neutral objectives, especially, not pinking the neutral objectives. That's fucking unacceptable for a Worlds caliber team. So
you're on the opposite end of the spectrum then. If I'm on one end of wanting to forgive their ill-looking best of 5.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I don't think what they showed was necessarily great. I think the 2 things that I'm giving them more credit for is, 1, I don't think UOL was quite the dumpster fire some of these other teams were. Like, I think even though Loki took a game off Damwon, that was almost exclusively off that bullshit lane swap.
That That was pretty crazy though. But I thought
they almost lost that game after everything went right. That's how bad I think Loki was. Is somehow they took a free fucking win and almost threw it.
Yeah, they gave up Infernal for like a plate off top. So I think they like fucked up the assignments after, but I think the general idea where they got the swap bot after and got all 5 plates, like that was
especially how much of it like perfectly went to Tristana against a team that has to just physically fucking run into you. And then they get flanked crazy, and like the Tristana dies without flashing or ulting, like all the things that went wrong to lose that game.
I mean, they greeted really hard for that mid tower because they got Herald, and then they immediately tried to get like all 15 plates, and they were heavy overcommitting, and that made the game like really easy for Damwon.
So. You guys know we still have a caller.
So, anyways, where I was going with that was none of the other playing teams that lost looked nearly as good to me as Yoel did, and while like you were saying, they're really nervous for Splice. I kind of think that too about some of these things that they're forgetting, like the pink wards and setting up their vision correctly and all that. And I'm hoping that they get the buff that it seems like some playing teams have, where they get to have these fuck ups versus UOL in a best of 5 versus having them on stage for the first time versus GAM and J Team in best of 1s. And so I'm hoping that some of these things get cleaned up by the time they take to the stage, and then I think that's what makes it close for me. Not exactly everything I saw in their best of 5 from today.
Mario, just to get back, is there any points or anything you want anybody to address on the China team front before we move on?
The only thing is that I'm slightly worried FunPlus just because they are a team with very little to no Worlds experience, as well as I feel like China's going to have a lot of pressure on them after their Worlds performance last year, and especially in the number 1 seed, they could crack under pressure, but yeah, that's it.
Yeah, do not doubt the pressure that Chinese fans can put. It's like, immeasurably different compared to the pressure that North American teams or European teams will even face.
And we just meme our teams. Mario, any shout outs or anything you want to say as we move on to the next caller?
Just that Super Mario Sunshine is the best Mario game ever made.
Thank you for the call.
No problem.
Okay, Mark is grabbing our next caller. Shout out to Killing You Guy for the 16 months. Les Schmaltz, Immortals fan, gifted a sub to Biff Sidious. Snowcone33, Wild West. Derek, OPTSM fan, gifted a sub to Wrath of Khan. OMG, you ate my cookies. Hitstreak for the 10 gifts. Salazar, Smoke Dog, Just Jaloo, Scoops, and Morrow. And I love you, chat, at 23 months. Ari Waddle for 20 months. Mr. T. Nelson, 45, Quiet Pirate. 5 gifted subs from Puppy. We're all caught up. We're just waiting on Mark right now. Oh, wow. We have a lot of people in the waiting room. Holy crap, he pulled a lot. I think he pulled as many as we normally
We'll just do like rapid fire, like
I have
part
to
of
pack.
The interruption
I need to move my
just stay up really
washing...
late, and then you adjust to the time zone that much faster.
Ooh, I need to move my laundry into the dryer. Mark, we have a lot of people in the waiting room. Okay. Ricardo, welcome to the show. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Costa Rica.
Costa Rica, nice.
Amazing.
I love it when we get international callers. What would you like to talk about on the show tonight?
So, how Reckless is the most flexible ADC on Group C, and this may give Fnatic an advantage, and it's actually what tips the scale in their favor and gets them out of the group.
He's what will tip them, tip the scale in their favor and get them out of the group, and that's because of his flexibility. You're saying?
Yeah, so in the last split, Reckless played Karma. That's a pick that Fnatic can flex. They can also flex Corki, by the way, with Nemesis. I really think that is, this gives them an advantage. Also, Garen Yumi was really big for them. I think that could be like, that really could be annoying to play for Uzi and Teddy, which are more like classic ADC carry on late game marksman.
True. I'm gonna kick this over to Invert.
Sure. I mean, for me, again, this group is so bot lane focused that any advantage you can get, whether it's playing mage bot lanes like Karma or playing the Garen Yuumi. As an aside, I don't really know how strong Garen Yuumi is anymore because I haven't scrimmed since the Yuumi nerfs, so I don't really know how effective that bot lane really is. I can say that when we played that bot lane in scrims, traditional ADs were pretty much impossible to play against Garen Yuumi. I remember we played TL during Gauntlet scrims, and we just absolutely smashed them within. They just like banned it for the rest of the scrim pretty much. So like I said, like any advantage you can get in this group when it comes to bot lane will be so important for all of these teams. So I'm really looking forward to seeing the different like best of one adaptations for that.
Yeah, do you think that group is just like the bot lane group?
Yeah, I do personally.
Yeah, I think other than SKT with Khan a little bit, and even then not that much, no one really plays that much around topside. And I think Clutch is probably actually the most of those teams, early game topside focused team. Brox is pretty good about moving around more places, and SKT you can say is more mid focused than bot focused. But even then, a lot of the I don't want to say star power because that feels kind of weird to say, but like a lot of the firepower of their teams come from the bot lane. RNG and Fnatic most heavily, but even Teddy and Cody come late game are kind of their team's focuses often.
Yeah, I would also say like the highest concentration quality wise of each role comes from bot in this group.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. And I think to the caller's point, while Reckless does have what you're talking about in his favor, I'm still also a little concerned about his traditional marksman matchups versus Uzi. If I remember correctly, historically he has like absolutely abysmal stats versus him and usually has pretty poor performances. Some of that feels like mental blocky, but I'm not sure if they've played since he's synced up with Hilly. I think they might have done it at Rift Rival, or excuse me, MSI 2018. But I think that might have been the only time they met, and I don't exactly remember how that went specifically. So this is very vague. Everything I just said was couched with I actually don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, but I'm pretty sure if someone wants to check, I think historically Reckless doesn't do that great into Uzi, which is a small concern for me about even the points you're making.
I mean, people feel it's interesting in that I feel like people like to say that Team Liquid's ADC is often overhyped going into Worlds, and I feel like in Europe, Reckless kind of has that same syndrome where people claim that he's always overhyped going into Worlds and then doesn't deliver.
I feel like I guess I hear people talk about how he's overhyped. It feels like he's one of those players who's just kind of doomed to be on either overhyped or like god tier, because I think he's
one of the most popular names.
Right. Anytime you have a super popular player like Double Lift, when they're doing well, it's like, you were never right. He never struggled. He's always been the best. And then when he loses, the other people come out and they're like, he was never good. They never got that. It was Caps carrying him the whole time. And you never get like the actual truth, which is usually in the middle ground.
Yeah. Good. Well, hey, Ricardo, anything that you want to say as we move on to the next caller?
No, I just wanted to add that there was a Reddit post like 9 days ago that Reckless is actually spamming mages in solo queue, so he's been playing a lot of Syndra, Nico, Morgana, Veigar, and Orianna, and he actually is playing Mundo as well, which could be a Garen replacement to play with Yuumi. So I think that the final against G2, where they lost to Syndra on Game 5, just like SKT did, change him as a player, and he may actually be expanding his champion pool.
I think it's one of those. So I'm a pessimist generally, and if the meta from summer last year, when no one was playing marksman in the bot lane, really wasn't enough to get him to like seriously commit to learning some different style.
No, he literally was like,
he has. He played Karma.
I know he's played Karma and he's played Garen and stuff like that, but I feel like often what happens is in the hyphy moments, people go back to Comfort. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's made the change.
You know what? I
just feel like when it comes down to it, it'll be Kaisa, Sivir, Xayah.
When I look forward to Worlds, I just think to myself, you know what I really want to see? Reckless on Mundo. You know, like that's the captivating gameplay in the bot lane that I want to see.
Hey, if you've ever played a dodgeball in League,
Yes,
you ever do that?
Yeah,
you
it's
go in a
just-
Baron pit, you put wards in the middle.
They do it on
and
the
then-
LCS broadcast.
Yeah, you just Mundo Q. You're going for it. So that's what I want to see.
Yeah. Reckless versus Uzi. All right, we're locking in Mundo right now, so it's just going to be, can Uzi dodge the cleavers? Ricardo, thanks so much for calling in.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, have a good one.
Same.
And we got to power through these next couple of callers so that I can actually be ready to go. Doing some work today. Your boy Graph, thank you for the 14 months. Snarf051, thank you for the 8 months in a row. Wait, why you wait last minute to pack? Because that's the best minute. St. Louis Slayer 24 donated $15 and said, please, Travis, have me on the show. There's no hype for NA anywhere, and I want to give it some.
Hey, we got hype coming right now with this caller.
I'm hyped.
Hype!
Jesus. Okay, we're gonna.
sorry.
You were at 200% for some. You've been on the show before, and you were quiet then, but you've since gotten a better mic or solved your problem. So
He's just so hyped. That's why.
welcome back to the show, Sakowitz. Where are you calling from?
Houston.
Houston. Very good. Oh, no wonder we're gonna get some hype.
Yeah.
Which team are you gonna hype?
H-Town.
Okay, it's not Clutch Town.
Really?
I want to hype TL and talk about how they're gonna smash Damwon in groups.
Okay.
So,
I'm excited to hear. Break it down.
All right, so on paper, Damwon is better individually on pretty point and player. I don't think anyone really has an argument for
I would
against
argue
that, except for Core JJ and maybe Double Lift, because Core is incredible.
I think Double Lift is pretty clearly better than Nuclear. But
Okay.
yeah, sorry. Yeah. Go ahead.
From what we've seen from Damwon, at least their history, especially this season, they seem to have the G2 effect where, at least right now, they seem pretty overhyped. Just because,
Wait,
sure,
you're
they
saying
look...
G2's overhyped?
No. Well, they could be. I remember you love talking about how you hate
continue.
G2.
Sorry.
I'm one of your... Okay. So, they had that upswing towards the end of their 2019 summer season. But then, they'll make these random mistakes and they'll drop random games like the one we saw in their play-in knockouts against Loki, where they lost that first game. These random mistakes, especially for TL, they don't typically happen as often. And because TL's style seems to be super consistent, and the fact that, their players aren't individually better, but their team coordination seems to be. I think TL are just going to win over every single time. And yeah, that's about it. People seem to forget TL's, that they actually did get to finals in MSI. They are a good team. They upgraded since last year. It seems to be all good.
Sakowitz, which matchup are you most concerned about as a TL fan? What are you most concerned about from Damwon?
Probably mid jungle, just because Xmithy hasn't been looking super hot mechanically and in some recent decisions that we've seen. Jensen seems to be not on the decline, just not as amazing as he seemed to look last year. So the mid jungle 2v2.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think Canyon and Xmithy will be a pretty interesting matchup because I really like how kind of high speed Canyon plays the game. You kind of saw that with those Talia games in the play-in stage. And Xmithy, during summer, during most of the year, you weren't really playing those junglers in NA. So I'd love to see what the fruits of TL's practice become when you see Nocturne, Kha'Zix, Talia. There's still some Gragas, which he's very, very good at. I'd love to see how the jungle pool works out for Xmithy. He was playing some Xin Zhao too. I don't know.
I feel like this is a really polite way of saying that you're concerned that Xmithy's not going to be able to.
I just haven't seen enough,
I mean, Xmithy used to be the Elise boy, right? So
But I think the other thing too is both Naguri and Impact have this tendency to drift towards the like range top laners, the like klepto champs. I think Loki showed a really clever way of stopping that with like the early lane swap, just so he doesn't get any stacks or any CS or anything like that. Obviously, I don't think TL will do anything like that, but if they're gonna match like klepto with klepto and just duke it out with range top laners, you know, Impact's Rise, his Kennen, they're both pretty good. His Vlad is very good. His Jace actually at the tail end of summer was very good. So it's just a matter of like how well those two interact on a range versus range matchup. That'll be pretty interesting. But you know, I think the bot lane difference between these two teams is pretty astounding. Like I do think Double F Core JJ is way better than Nuclear and Barrel. So it's just a matter of you know, if TL, a bot focused team, can actually exploit that and recognize that and do well. So
yeah, I think I'm mostly in a similar boat. I think Canyon and Showmaker should get the better of Jensen and Smithy. I'm more concerned about the Canyon Smithy part than the Jensen Showmaker. And then the top side one's the really interesting one to me because I think Naguri's better, but I also think Impact's really good about playing into difficult situations. And I think that's what I'm most interested to see what happens, because I think that's the part where I'm least sure of what's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because he, like, Naguri can be so greedy, like the Vlad Cole start and stuff like that. Like when he wants to style on someone or like, you know, have his hard carry performances, it feels like it's a little less smash you in lane focused, which is always where you're most concerned, or at least historically most concerned for Impact. So I feel like this could be one where Impact is totally fine and it's non-issue, or it's one where he's being a bit of a liability in their game.
I don't know why. I feel really jaded and nervous about TL. I know that they made it to finals at MSI, but there's just something that's making me nervous. And I honestly, that probably means
they've hurt you too many times before.
Yeah, possibly. But honestly, the funny thing is, and I know that this is like kind of a shitty way of going about it, but I do almost feel like if there's just a lack of hype for TL, they'll just show up and crush everything.
Yeah, I mean,
there's already a lack of hype.
It's just gamblers. It's gamblers fallacy type stuff, right? Like you're looking at the previous results with completely different, you know, not completely different, mostly different rosters, and you're just seeing like, oh, well, I'm gonna buy transitive property, put it over to this team, but this team is very different than the previous TL. You know, the support has, you know, is a lot smarter about the game, and you could see that in international competition. And so I think that makes like a really big difference.
The thing that they both deal with though is that they both have to spend most of their year in North America. Both rosters. That is my concern, right? It's just I always worry. I don't know how Cloud9 does it. That's fucking crazy. But I worry that we've spent so like looking so much at seeing how the first seed fails over and over again. You look at Mark's. Hang on, where's the spread? I can't pull the spreadsheet up.
It's not even just North America. Every single first seed is outdone by at least one other, aside for the LMS.
Either their second or third.
Yeah, either the second or third, and sometimes both.
So I don't. At what point in time does it not become gamblers fallacy? Because it's like that we just there's clearly something in the water for the first seeds.
I mean, not really. Like, if you can't, I'm one of those people who like, ooh, the math says this, and it's like, okay, explain it. And if you can't, I'm just gonna be like, well,
I really don't think you can explain it.
I mean, a lot of the first
seed, exactly.
A lot of those first seed, you know, like summer finals typically are best of fives, and they go to the game 5, and the game 5 could have technically, like, I wouldn't have been surprised if Cloud9 won and got first seed. Would you have?
Yeah, I think that's fair, and some of it comes down to how the groups happen. Like, there was the year that for Europe, H2K got to semis, right. And that, like, if you look at their, you know, second seed performance, it's like, wow, that's crazy, and that helped bump that number down and stuff like that. So I think when you really dig into the weeds, there's some other stuff going on, and I think you make a good point, Sakowitz, about it's not like first and second in most of these regions are like, whoa, one's way better, you know.
No.
No one wants to hype TL because no one wants to get hurt again.
another
I
reason
actually think that's why. Like,
Yeah.
I think you should be I think everyone should be proud of TL coming into this, and they should be pretty optimistic and positive. I think it's a really strong first seed that we're sending, and they have a group with the potential to get out, and we should be supportive of that. But everyone's just really fucking scared because we're NA, and you know, we just need to have confidence in ourselves as a region, and be able to support our teams that we're sending, because they are our 3 best teams, and we should be cognizant of that and be proud to support that. So that's pretty much it.
Okay,
Didn't you
I'm on board.
also-
Team Liquid's gonna win fucking Worlds. Invert said it.
Yeah, let's
Confidence.
You ruined our chances.
Sakowitz, anything you want to say as we say goodbye?
I thought it was funny that I got into the call after the Mundo thing. Mundo's my favorite champion. I really hope he gets played at Worlds. I think Reckless on Mundo would be very funny.
Are we? Do you guys think we're going to see a lot of champion diversity? Given that I saw that Reddit thread that was like, there's been so much
This has to be
champion
the most
diversity.
diverse Worlds meta.
Play-ins was equally diverse this year compared to last year. I think it was like 1 champion off. But I do think you have the opportunity for that through regional differences, but it won't be anything crazy where like every champion gets picked or anything like that.
Yeah.
As long as it's not another Ardent meta, I don't care what the meta is.
Yeah, I don't think we're in one of these like super defined metas, so I think it'll change a lot over the course of Worlds as people define new things, but I don't think it'll be Dota.
Sakowitz, thanks so much for the call.
No problem. Alienware.
Sorry,
Why?
it was one more this year compared to last year.
Gotcha. Thanks, Sakowitz. All right, we've got a couple more callers to go.
Let's do it. I could do this all night. How about you, Travis?
I need to pass. Adwin, thank you for the 19 months. We haven't had any subs in the past 15 minutes, so if anybody wants to fix that. Well, King Lawler joined the channel, but Mark did not make it in.
Mark is
and he looks confused.
disappointed. Yeah.
I'm a little confused by what's going on. Mark? He sent somebody into this chat.
Hey,
and
are
he's
you
having
Mark's
a conversation
replacement?
with other people. King Lawler, let's just start the conversation. Where are you from?
Congratulations on taking Mark's spot.
Yeah.
I'm from Athens, Ohio, Ohio University.
Nice.
Cool.
Mark, what took you so long?
Oh, I was prepping the other 2 guys while you.
I was so confused. You just shoved this lovely man into our channel, and then we were.
And then you just figured out where he lived. I figured I could skip that part.
Well, now you don't know. What do you want to talk about on the show tonight, King?
Sure. So my take is that the Koreans are severely overrated, and they are going to be the 4th best region, or maybe around NA level.
Do you say they're overrated?
Yeah, overrated.
I feel like their list
How
is
could
the
they
least
be
hyped
around
going into...
NA level if NA is gonna win Worlds?
Yes, that's true. But
like Travis said,
more realistic. No, Invert, you said that. More realistically, I feel like this is the least hype Korea has been going into Worlds.
For sure, but like, look at all the players they have on the top 20 lists, and all the hype that Damwon has coming out of plans. I don't know. It seems pretty hype to me.
Relative to their history, yes, this is not that hyped, but I think the caller's point is what he views as their skill, they're still getting too much credit. Correct? Yep. Yeah, okay.
So they're worse than anyone even thinks they are.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, they're sending 2 teams with no international pedigree, no history of anything really, right? Like Griffin, again, we talked about this before. Like, what kind of Griffin are we going to get coming into Worlds? No one knows, except for, obviously, Griffin, how they're scrimming, etc. gives you some indication, but it's not super clear. And Damwon's kind of similar, right? Like, they're sending Damwon in. They were Gauntlet winners. We saw a bit of Damwon in the play-in stage. They didn't, like, blow us away the same way a Korean third seeds of the past have done, right? Like, KT Rolster 2015 or anything like that. So yeah, I can agree with the caller, but I also can't agree with the sentiment that Korea is like a little underhyped right now, but they're also like a little undeserving of the hype that they're getting, except SKT. I think SKT is like very clearly a powerhouse and a favorite to win the entire thing. So
if you look at that spreadsheet again, you'll notice that Korea was actually the worst performing of the major 4 regions last year at Worlds, even behind NA. By getting 2 teams, I mean it's a pretty weird way of looking at it. 2 teams got out of groups, but 2 of them lost in quarters, and their other team was the last place team in the group.
Yeah, shout out Genji.
Yeah, Genji really pulled that one down. Whereas North America had 2 third-place teams and a team that made semis, which on this ranking made them higher. But I still don't think that means we were a better region last year. Anyways, for this year, I see where you're coming from, and especially like Invert was saying with the unproven track record of Griffin and Damwon. Griffin, I think, is a bit of a black box in that sense, though, where we have watched them in their own environment in Korea be good for so long. Yes, they have these choking parts to them, but they're not quite like a complete unknown in that sense, where they came up out of nowhere this year and suddenly they're playing well. It's like we've been watching these guys for 3 splits in a row now basically be the best regular season Korean. And I think that's why people are hyping them up, not really because like unproven, players. I think they are a little different than like even Damwon in that sense, where they're like both of them have the same amount of international experience, but for some reason, it's like, well, we've watched Griffin a lot longer and seen how good they are. And I don't think they're at the peak of when we ever saw Griffin. I don't think they're the hype. People are talking about Tarzan not being quite as dominant as he was when he initially broke onto the scene, but I'm still not with you. I'm a Korean fanboy. I think what Damwon showed, like, I don't think they're playing to their best level yet. I think Naguri was strolling with that Vlad start, as well as them kind of getting cheesed a little bit with a crazy game. And they still almost brought it back. And, like, he still had disgusting flanks that was helping win fights, even though he was so far behind. And, like, that was one of those games where I lost, but it was like I almost respected them in what happened in that game, even though they lost.
Lawler, does your anti-hype extend to SKT?
Yeah. So let me tell you where I'm coming from. So I watched the EU finals, right? And then I watched the Korean finals, and it just doesn't look like the same game at all. Like, EU is just so much faster. G2 and Fnatic are just all over each other in the early game. They're diving by all the time. And SKT is just still so slow. It looks like I'm watching a game from 2016. I just think that they're going to get run over. Like, here's the thing. Like, I think EU plays like monkeys, but I think that the meta right now is to play like a monkey. I think that's how you win the games. And, like, I guess my point is just, if you think that G2 and Fnatic are some of the best teams, then you should be able to concede that SK and Griffin must not be one of the best teams, because they're just not as aggressive as the European teams. I just don't think that their region is fast enough. It doesn't have the momentum that the Europeans come into the game with. So, like, I'm looking at these groups. I think Griffin is probably third. It's definitely going to be close with Cloud9. I don't think they have a chance for G2. I think SKT, I think they're one of the biggest overhyped teams, in my opinion. I think, like, Fnatic and RNG are going to really smash SKT. I think they maybe get 2 wins, maybe 3 wins. I don't think they're going to do great. And Damwon, I think, is totally doomed. That they're all about their top hype. I've never seen the Korean top show up at Worlds. Like, Kuve's done pretty good, but man, Smeb and Khan, those guys just never hit it. And I think the bot lane is just going to get rolled over. I don't know.
Wasn't the World's Finals MVP in 2015 top laner?
And Marin, that little guy.
That guy.
But, like,
I think Korean tops, even on other teams, like, have been very, very good, and the quality of Korean, quality of Korean top laners has been really, really high, and has, they're sending 3 pretty good top laners. I mean, Doran, Sword, they're kind of, I wouldn't call them amazing compared to the Naguri and Khan, but I truly don't think that, at least on the top side, that Korean teams are lacking.
And I don't even think that's where they're most hyped. I'd say their most hyped position is probably their jungles or their mids, right? Like, people talk about Tarzan, Canyon, and Clid and Tarzan arguably being MVPs of their teams.
Yep.
Canyon was he the summer MVP, or was he just close in points? I forget.
Close. He was.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you have Showmaker, Chovy, and Faker as well. So I feel like it's not even that the top laners are even where most of the hype is. So, I'm definitely of the camp where I agree they don't seem overall to play quite as fast as other regions, like China and Europe. I think, Griffin's pretty fast and loose.
Is that true? Like Griffin is a fast team. Canyon plays really, really high, fast clear junglers that try to affect lanes early, specifically mid. Clid Faker is like a mid jungle duo that always tries to get shit done on the map pre 10-15 minutes. Like, I'm not really sure that I buy into. I do agree that, previously when they were sending like Genji, Afrika, like those teams could get bowled over by much faster teams. But I think the Korea you're seeing this year, is playing a little more fast and loose. Like Damwon and Griffin were really, really good at getting those early advantages. So I think we can see that again here and that they can keep up.
I think they're definitely faster than they were in the past. And like I was saying, I think Griffin is kind of more in the mold of some of these other teams. But part of me still feels like when I watch it, it's like still kind of in that like very well reasoned out phase, that I tend to see with Korean teams. Whereas I feel like sometimes watching European and Chinese teams, it's almost like, well, we're just going to fight in lanes. And if the jungler shows up, the jungler shows up. And we're not going to really respect the jungler until he shows up, whereas I don't always feel like I see that in Korea. Even while the junglers are a lot more aggressive and a lot faster paced than they were historically, I don't think I see like the full team aggression the way that you sometimes see with the other regions. And even then, like a lot of the game is dictated by jungle. So if these other teams are going crazy, but Canyon, Tarzan, and Clid are controlling the pace of the game, it doesn't really matter. You can slow the other person down. You don't have to just speed up to their level. So,
King, what were you gonna say?
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say I think jungle is one of the big things that you'll see here, because those guys are rated really highly in Korea, but in Korea the junglers are. Did I cut out there?
No, you're good.
Oh, sorry. The junglers are so much more predictable on what they're gonna do. I think it's so much easier to path around them. I think that they have a much better read on what a Korean jungler is going to do than a European jungler or a Chinese jungler. And in the past, when some Chinese jungler does some nutty gank route, it ends up just blowing up in their face because Korea is just so controlled that they just run them over. But I think this year, and until this meta really shifts around, I don't think they're going to be that dominant.
I mean, I haven't really looked at like pathing of different junglers recently, but I think there's a pretty good foundation that every jungler follows. And in terms of creativity on paths, honestly, like NA is the worst at being creative. Like our jungle pool
we need
in the LCS,
right?
Our jungle pool in the LCS is not conducive to people being pretty creative with their gank paths, or just general pathing, and often it's really inefficient. I think Korea pathing emphasizes efficiency. I think Europe's pretty good at it too. China's pretty good at it too. Like, I don't know. I just think like jungle's kind of a moot point in this situation. And I think Korean teams, if they are overhyped, it's certainly not because of their junglers, because those guys are properly hyped.
Okay, is there a world, Mark, or Invert where SKT is overhyped? Invert, you came out strong and said they're a contender to win the whole thing.
Yeah, I still think they're a contender to win the whole thing. Nothing
so
far has convinced me otherwise.
Is there a scenario, Mark or Invert, where they collapse or something?
I mean, anything can happen, but just because you predict something doesn't mean you have a good reason for it. So like I'm definitely in everything I've seen from SKT is they're really good. They as much as they got 3rd, 4th at MSI and it was a disappointment, G2 is a really, really good team. They pushed them to 5 games. They had opportunities to win that series that they dropped, and I think they're better now than they were then. So I'm pretty confident that they are one of the 3 teams who has a real chance of winning Worlds.
And their LCK playoff run was just astounding. Like, it was just complete wreckage for everyone else. It was crazy. And
really? Because I heard they were pretty slow compared to G2 and Fnatic.
I mean, they
King.
had to play more games. You know, they had to play like 4 series in a row. So,
King, anything you want to say? First off, if Korea flunks out, then obviously you get to be a celebrity. Number 2, anything you want to say before we move on to the next caller?
No, I mean, I see where they're coming from. It's fair enough. I just think they'll be a little bit too slow, but I mean, only time will tell. I guess we'll see.
Thanks so much for calling in.
Thanks.
cheers.
Great. Our second sponsor break of the evening. Want to give a big shout out to Movement. Go check them out over at mvmt.com/Travis. They make watches, glasses, sunglasses, blue light filter glasses. They're great. They make jewelry now. Company that's based out of Los Angeles, and they make some really cool stuff. I really appreciate that. If you use mvmt.com/Travis, you can go over there right now. And by the way, again, that helps me out a ton if you go check it out. You can get 15% off of your selection, and it's just applied right there, so you don't even have to worry about a promo code or anything. It's just built into the link. You can go check out mvmt.com/Travis. Steve from Liquid recently bought a watch from them. I'm going to be wearing this one throughout Worlds, and if you look at any of the videos, interviews, or anything I ever do outside, you'll pretty much see me sporting the sunglasses they sent me. Really cool brand, really cool company, with some really interesting products. You can go check them out. They've got men's and women's wear as well, and there's some cool special edition stuff that they're doing as well. So anyway, all that stuff is fantastic. Free shipping on all orders. Go check them out at mvmt.com/Travis. By the way, it's free shipping worldwide, which is pretty great because I know that a lot of our audience is overseas, and normally, sometimes you hear these advertisements on North America show, and you go and you look at the shipping, and it's incredible. Free shipping worldwide. So thanks so much to Movement for their sponsoring of our show. On to the next caller.
Alrighty.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I need them to make me a custom watch that just has... Somebody in Twitch chat said, you don't need to watch, it's always Tanner time, Hot Wheels and Babes. I just need them to make me a custom watch that just has Devontae's face on all of the faces.
Hello, Travis.
Hello. We have OPTSM fan here. OPTSM fan, welcome back to the show. Frequent caller. Remind everyone where you're from.
Houston.
Houston.
Ooh, H-Town is really repping today.
Our second Houston caller. Are you calling in to hype up Clutch?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
They'll do it themselves.
All right.
No. I just wanted to go back to the point about the air quote set play that Invert and Mark were talking about before.
Hell yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah, so I loved the conversation with people like Zoo and other people coming in, and people were talking over each other. Mark asked the question about, like, have we seen anyone else be as hyper focused with a certain style? I thought the only thing that I could think about that I could remember was G2 last year at Worlds, with always opting to 1-3-1 and then giving some sort of supportive carry in the bot lane, whether it was mage like Heimer for Hjarnan or something like Jhin. That's not going to be like a consistent DPS threat, and then play through that way. And then there was another one that I totally forgot about that I remember. I think it was either when it was the EU LCS or LPL, where they would literally dive bot lane every 10 minutes, at 10 minutes, like, or after the first recall of their bot lane, so every time, and then to try to do it with an item advantage and get like that. But I think Clutch's hyper focus on Herald speaks more to the importance of the early game and platings right now, and then I think that they're taking advantage of that, and I think that other teams should emulate styles like this depending on the meta. Because when you have players like Mark Z was talking about, who try to be jack of all trades and master of none, or maybe few, to try to be like very diverse in their playstyle, but never like settling on one. It's something you've heard like Double Lift talk about many, many times, no matter what team he's been on. Even other players have said that. So I think it's an important thing, and I think that it may be a reason why you saw Clutch be able to succeed not only in North America but during play-ins.
It's one of those things where it's a little hard to comment on. I mean, I agree that the G2 is a good example. There's a couple other examples that people have brought up. You know, like 2014 TSM always invaded, and I'm going to use a lot of NA ones because they're the teams that I've watched like literally every single game of since years. But like 2014 TSM did this with invading blue buffs. 2016 TSM summer with like diving bot lane after getting mid priority. Felt like almost every single game off double lift pressure. You know, there's been a couple of teams like that. Like you said, the 1-3-1. Fnatic was kind of close back when they had Huni and Reignover. They did a lot of 1-3-1 if I remember correctly. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think the question that you asked about it though was like, can other teams like punish it? And I think that of all the groups that Clutch could have been put in, this is the main one that can punish it because, like Invert said, SKT answering there, and I think that just Fnatic. The only team I don't think that would answer it would be RNG, because I think they'll be fine with giving Uzi like free turret plates bot lane as they lose the 4v5 top to just continue to try to stall until about 25 minutes. But I mainly just wanted to call to give more praise to being hyper focused on a style is not necessarily a bad thing, and that I think for NA's growth we should start to try to see teams do that more.
Yeah, like I mentioned before, that definitely is great as a foundation. And then once you get punished as well, you can start to adjust and identify what's so good and what's so bad about that certain thing that you're doing, and that you're able to build up upon that. And I think that is like the core way for teams, not just in the LCS, but in general, to improve, is to discover that for yourselves. Like Golden Guardians, you know, great team, played through Froggen and Hanser, like had those solo lanes and just weren't able to build up on that identity. But they at least had that foundation and were able to be competitive with that foundation. It's just about having the right, infrastructure, staff, players to build up on that and be able to adjust and be not as stubborn about sticking to that. And I think that's really important for the growth of teams in general. And yeah, I think you see that with Clutch, where they brought in a coaching staff that was very malleable, very adaptable, and that they have players that are willing to kind of take those chances once they see how they get punished on their original identity. So, and it's not like they weren't punished, you know, when people started identifying it in summer playoffs, right? Like CLG won both of their best of fives against them, and then they lost in Gauntlet, and teams in Gauntlet, ourselves included, were able to punish, you know, that strategy kind of effectively overall. So, you know, that team grew from that original baseline assumption that a lot of people were making, that they just like brainlessly run to Herald at 10 minutes, right? Or even like before 10 minutes. So yeah. I definitely think taking that initial idea of how to be, what kind of team you want to be, the identity that you have, is so important. I think Clutch did that really well. I think TL does that really well. And I think building up from there is really good too. So.
Thanks so much. Go ahead, OPTSM's fan, and just give any final thoughts.
Yeah, I totally agree. Just shout out to Alienware Movement. Invert, thanks everything. Loved you since the college scene, and shout out to my friend Chad Penguin in chat.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
Have a good one. Final.
Yeah, collegiate.
Yeah, we don't. Ovally always tries to do that too. We don't do that here. Is it Luctus, Stellar, or Luctus?
Luctus.
Luctus, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Connecticut.
Okay. You sound excited. I'm a little nervous about what this take is going to be. There's just a slight amount of insanity in your voice that I'm picking up on. So what do you got for us?
All right. So I want to bring up the fact that, excluding 2014 Worlds, Cloud9 has never failed to knock out an LPL team or an LCK team from groups. Even in 2015, when they failed to make it out of groups, they still managed to knock out, I believe it was Invictus Gaming.
So they have for the past 4 years they've knocked out an LPL or LCK team.
Yes, before last year, they had never, an LPL team had never been out of a group that had Cloud9 in it, and then RNG did last year, but Cloud9 still knocked out Genji. So my prediction is that Griffin is not going to make it out of this group because they're the only LCK or LPL team in Cloud9's group, and one of them always doesn't make it out.
You know what my favorite thing about League of Legends is, Travis, Mark?
What's that?
Small sample sizes.
Yeah.
So
this, I mean, thinking about it, because they are a 3rd seed, they are always going to end up with an LP, like either an LPL or an LCK team, right? And there's usually a very good chance that they end up with both.
Yeah, or at least someone, sure.
And so that's I feel like that increases their chances dramatically of knocking one of those teams out because it's just the way that it's structured. Like, I wonder how many other teams you could find some interesting stat like that for.
Yeah, it's just we're taking like the results that they've had and then just like drawing conclusions based on what seems to be more like coincidence / just the fact that because they're an NA team, they probably have to play a Korea and China team in their group, and they probably have knocked out that team in order to go into the knockout stage. So yeah, that kind of makes sense. That's just how the groups are structured.
According to my small sample size, if you look at their placings versus average Worlds teams' placings over the last 3 years, they're actually the 4th or 5th best team in the world. So there you go. They're the 4th or 5th best team in the world. As long as Griffin and G2 aren't better than that, which actually there's a kind of chance they actually are, then they'll be fine.
Yeah.
They average a placing of 5.5. That's good enough for top 4, top 5.
Sounds good to me.
I mean, the thing that I always forget about, and I think maybe we all kind of forget about it, is group stages. They're these best of ones, and it's so chaotic that like. This is why we always end up with all these crazy upsets, is because, you know, it's just like, okay, over the course of 4 days, you play 3 games that are all best of ones. All you need is one of those to go weird for like halfway through. It's like, whoa, Cloud9 is somehow, you know, tied and they're at the top of the group or something. I don't know. This is the bold prediction for me. I have more hype for Cloud9 getting out of their group than TL getting out of their group.
You know what my second favorite thing about League of Legends is? So my first is small sample sizes.
Oh, no. You're going to make fun of me, aren't you?
No. My second favorite thing about League of Legends is come Worlds time, everyone thinks it's so goddamn predictable how group stage is going to go, etc. And always at the end of the year, only one person, maybe, I think only maximum one person's bracket is ever correct, right? So it's always that chaos, and that chaos causing all these different results. And I think this Worlds will be incredibly funny because this is probably the most volatile Worlds in terms of who favorites are, etc. ever. And I could just see it being the most mundane, routine shit where like everything that's expected is just gonna happen.
Like, I'm like headed back out of because for those that don't know, actually I don't know if I've said this yet. Brodin and I are just gonna come back from Worlds whenever we're like, okay, we've had enough. Maybe I'll just leave after groups this year because I'll be like, okay, this was the most boring, mundane thing. It's just we're done.
You know what's funny, Invert? If you kind of think about what you said, you know, like do factor analysis, your first and second favorite things about Worlds are kind of the same thing.
Oh,
you
absolutely.
love small sample sizes, and that means that people are always wrong because you don't get to play enough games for the clearly obvious, predictable thing to happen.
Exactly.
I don't know.
So maybe it's 1 and 1.5 then.
Yeah, it's like a 1 and then 1B.
Yeah.
However many games you played last year, Genji was not going to get out of that group.
That's true. They were bad.
Hey,
you know, there's always got to be a control in
it's
every situation.
It's funny, Luxus, because you said until last year it had only been LPL teams they knocked out, not LCK, and then they added LCK to their belt. Why can't they add EU to their belt this year and knock G2 out?
I don't know. 2014 they got Alliance out of there, so they've already.
Oh yeah.
They've already notched one off there.
Okay.
Actually, wait, is that the I think that no EU team has ever made it out in the same group as Cloud9 as well. Let me go back over that. So
Is that even?
no.
Is that even?
So
I mean,
never mind.
Cloud9 have definitely gotten out
No
of.
team ever makes it out of
2015 Fnatic
Cloud9
got
groups.
Major region teams have definitely gotten out of groups at the same time as Cloud9. It doesn't make sense that a major region team has never made it out of groups with Cloud9. That is
CQ
almost
sweating
impossible.
right now.
If
Oh
you
my
go
God.
back and look at it, in 2014, you had Alliance not make it out. 2015, you had Fnatic make it out, but you did not have Invictus Gaming make it out. Cloud9 also failed, and AHQ got out. 2016, you had IME, who I think was the Chinese third seed.
Yep.
Did not make it out. 2017, you had EDG. And then 2018, you had Genji. So 2015 is the only time a European seed has gotten out with Cloud9 in the group. You know, correlation doesn't equal causation, but
if you ignore the times that this law isn't true, every time Cloud9 gets out of a group, someone else doesn't. I'll do you one better. Every time Cloud9 is in a group, someone doesn't get out. Sometimes it's them. Sometimes
And
it's
actually, it's not just one team. 2 teams don't make it out.
Just get abstract enough. It's always true.
Holy.
Hey, thanks so much for the call. Anything you want to say as we wrap up the show?
I want to shout out Cloud9 for bringing back Summoning Insight. And I also want to shout out Selectively Active and Movement for sponsoring the show.
Thank you so much.
Nice.
Have a good one.
Thanks. Bye.
All right. Well, that wraps up the show.
Oh man.
Invert, do you want to shout anything out? Any plugs or anything you want to make?
Yeah. So for FlyQuest, obviously we didn't make Worlds, but similar to last year, we are going to do content around Worlds, and that includes content with Wild Turtle. He's going to be at the event.
You don't watch that shit.
doing
YouTube channel.
Doing similar stuff compared to last year. So be on the lookout for that. That should be really exciting. And yeah, hopefully you guys check that out on the FlyQuest YouTube channel. Other than that, shout out to FlyQuest and shout out to the North American teams. Really rooting for you guys. I am personally confident in North America this year, and I hope everyone else is too.
Mark?
Thanks for coming on, Invert.
Yeah, of course.
That's your
Anytime you guys will
shout out?
have
Just
me.
thinking it.
Hey, I appreciate it.
Look how far you've fallen, Mark. The only thing you could do is shout out the person on the show we're currently on.
Check out my untitled spreadsheet. I'll be posting it on Twitter after this. Give it a retweet.
Beautiful.
And be surprised at how bad LMS has been the last 3 years.
Yeah. For me, I am headed to Worlds in 12 and a half hours. Hopefully.
That's plenty of time to pack.
Yeah. and I'm excited to go. It's gonna be fun. Please check out my channel. We're gonna have a bunch of stuff coming through. Kelby in the chat says, "Let's be honest, no one is checking out the FlyQuest anything." I love that Kelby shows up in the very end of the show. To
Just
FlyQuest.
Lame. What the fuck?
Yeah.
And yeah, there's gonna be a whole bunch of stuff. And this year we have a third member of the team in Helen, which her name is Deer. You can go check her out. I did an interview with her, introducing her to the YouTube channel whenever I caught up with her at TwitchCon. So be sure to go check that out. Shout out to Mark's spreadsheet. And yeah, I'm going to be freezing my ass off in Berlin, eating...
Oh,
what is that, Mark?
TV. Sorry, I'll fuck off.
No, it's fine. I'm going to be freezing my ass off and eating terrible food to make content for all of you. So please respect my sacrifices. Much like last year, I think if the internet holds up at the hotel, which last year we were in Korea, now we're in Berlin, I'm going to be trying to stream a little bit after the shows. So hopefully you guys can check out the streams as well. And I believe that is the show. Thanks so much to everyone for watching. This was a mega long episode to catch up on all the cool stuff. Thanks for Invert for coming on. It's been Hotline League episode 94.